to Eric's podcast. Dive into conversations about life, family, and business with your host, Eric. Whether you're looking for practical advice, personal stories, or just a little inspiration, Eric's got you covered. Tune in every week to join the journey and get ready to elevate your game. Now, here's your host, Eric.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eric's podcast. I'm your host, Eric. Today, we're going to be talking about an X post that I came across earlier this week, formerly Twitter, and it's about your mental health and how your brain works mentally in terms of how it releases dopamine and how it can ultimately kind of affect your overall performance in just the way that you think, your mind, and all of that. So we're going to go through this. This is not my post. I didn't come up with this, but we're going to go through it. I'm going to give my opinion on some of the points that are being made here on this post. Number one, start us off with is to stop partying. Partying is a waste of time and a lie in 2025. It's true. Partying has been advertised with young people as like this thing to do when you're young, when you're in your 20s, when you're in college, to live life because live it while you're young, when the exact opposite is what you should be doing. You should be while you're young, you should be taking that opportunity to actually going out and trying to build something, because the faster you get that up and running, the faster you'll be able to retire, and then you can actually live and actually do the things you want to do and still be mentally there and physically there for it, instead of waiting till you're in your 30s and 40s to actually get off the couch and start building something. By the time you're done building it, unless you hit some form of you hit something really good, you're going to be older by the time you sell it, or by the time you can actually start living your life, quote, a little bit. Plus, you have to consider other things that get in the way, like having kids. Now your time is split in between kids. You getting married or having a partner or something, your time is then split between them because you have to manage that. And so really, when you're young and you don't have those responsibilities, is the best reason and the best environment. Plus, your body and everything is so mentally, it's all much faster, or can be a lot faster, or it's naturally faster than as you get older. So I agree with that. Overspending. Stop overspending. That's a pretty obvious one. You can't really build something if you're constantly at zero in your bank account. I definitely am guilty of this. I don't know how many people are, but I am guilty of going with that whole partying scene. Is the overspending, maybe not necessarily on stuff. I don't buy that much stuff. My wife doesn't really buy that much stuff, but we definitely like experiences, and we definitely like splurging for the higher end experiences than whereas we'd otherwise technically maybe might be a little discomfort, but it ultimately saves us money, and every penny saved is something that can go towards something in the future. So that's a good point. Being afraid of risks. The biggest risk is taking no risk. When you take a good risk, you're more likely to gain than to lose. That is 100% true. When you're an entrepreneur, whether or not you're an entrepreneur or you're starting anything, you're going after the girl, or you're going to have kids, or you're going to buy a house, whatever it is, Doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be, there is a risk associated with that. There's a risk associated with getting in your car. There's risk associated every day that we're constantly calculating in the back of our mind. And if we're not, then we're just carelessly going through life, not taking into account risks, which can help people sometimes in terms that isn't an obstacle, but it also can backfire, because if you're not necessarily calculating in the risk through life, some things are not worth the risk. Like going all in on a poker game and you still have to pay the mortgage. Yes, that is extremely risky. If you don't think about it, you just go all in, then that is not good, obviously. So you need to calculate the risk on things. I'm not saying like every single thing, but if you want to get in the habit and practice adding that into your decision-making process, what is the risk of this? Then that would be something that would be a good thing to kind of exercise, is kind of trying to, before making any kind of decision, kind of think about what's the risk or what's the ratio of this actually going the right way, and what's the chances that it's not? Because all risk is just, it's another word for chance. But yeah, you got to take risks though. You got to take a chance. You got to go out on that cliff. You got to jump off. And that's how you grow as a person. And that's how you hit those gold veins of success that you otherwise wouldn't get to if you didn't, get the pick out and start picking through the dirt and through the rock. So definitely have to take risks. There's nothing wrong with risks. There's nothing wrong. You cannot be afraid of failure. Failure is a good thing. And I would say 80% of the time, when you fail, you're going to learn, or at least know why you failed, or you'll have an idea of the mistake that you made that made it fail. And although you can't reload it back in, but you can duplicate, most likely, eventually, you at least can figure out, okay, I could reduplicate this if I wanted to, and know where to go. I know for me personally, a good example would be the e-commerce store. I know that I could, the chance of failure is so much lower now if I was to go back and start an e-commerce brand than it was when I first got started. And that is why, it's because I've already gone through most of all the hoops and all the learning process and the knowledge needed to where I basically can jumpstart all of that, any mistakes that I made. Not saying all of them, because it could be a different industry and that could be different. I'm not saying that, it's also a different time. But I'm saying that I have the knowledge that can get me almost all the way there. And then there's just a tiny little bit left over that I need to learn that's risky. Versus when I first got started, I didn't know anything about it and I was learning as I was going. That was a much riskier setup than after I've already been successful with it and I could do it again. Similarly, for anything, if you have had a kid before, and then you would know that the first kid is always like the most stressful, the most you don't know what you're getting into, and it's the most kind of emotionally anxiety-driven type of thing, and your whole body, like your body's also changing and feeling it too, and trying to get used to it, to a newborn. And then, and of course, we go out and buy all the most random stuff that you don't ever end up using. And then when you have the second kid, there might be a little bit of anxiety because there most of the time always is in birth itself. There's always an underlying risk factor just for the birth itself. But I'm talking about everything outside of that. Oh, am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to be a good parent? Is this the right way of navigating this right now? I don't know. And so But with the second kid, you've already gained all the knowledge of the first one. And so there's not that much anxiety, not as much as before. There is, you already kind of know what you're getting into. You know kind of what to expect. Obviously, personalities are different, but the overall underlying thing, they need to be fed. They need to be walked around. They need to be swaddled. They need to be, entertained and played with. They need to be loved. And how you do that is relatively the same from kid to kid, with exceptions, obviously. But my point is that emotionally, you know that you're kind of know where you're going there. And it makes it so you're able to focus a little bit better if you're trying to build a business or build something when you had your second kid, because you have more brain power. So, yeah. Let's see. Falling into distractions. Ooh, this might be a good one. See, if you're 18 to 25, probably more like 18 to 35, honestly, it's extremely easy to do so. Yeah. Very true. And I agree. When you're partying and you're getting drunk or you're doing drugs or whatever, or having a smoke or whatever it is, all of that stuff is constantly releasing dopamine. And a little bit of alcohol, but it's releasing dopamine, and dopamine is kind of like it's like the accomplish feeling type. I wouldn't say drug. I would say chemical that is released in your brain. It affects your energy. It affects all sorts of stuff, and this kind of goes into the next point on this. But when you're constantly partying, you're constantly hungover. I don't know if you're like me, and I'm not talking like really, really, really bad hungover. I'm talking just kind of like a regular hungover. And for me, a regular hungover is not physical. I don't feel it necessarily physically. I feel it more emotionally. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the hungover depression. I forget what it's exactly called, but it's basically you feel like you don't want to do anything. You just want to lie around all day. And you're very fuzzy-headed. You can't really like stay on one thing. You get bored really, really fast. And all you want to do is go get another drink and just like hang out. And that's kind of what a normal hungover is for me, and I have to be very aware of that, because I can try to work through it, but the problem is that the performance is extremely bad. It probably cuts my performance by like 80% at least when that happens. The other thing it does is it just rips your sleep up. Like, you don't sleep as well. You wake up tired still, and all that stuff. And sleep affects your overall performance by a ton, just how you can be and operate during the day. So, yeah, definitely try not to fall into those kind of distractions. Try not to also fall into, especially if you work on the computer and you work from home, try not to be tempted into, I'm going to just play a quick game, I'm going to just do a quick round. Because maybe you're on your lunch break or whatever, and you're deeming it, this is my lunch break for the day. Completely is going to mess your entire day up in terms of your mentally thinking forward what you need to do and what you need to get done. Instead, what you should do is save that time for as like a reward for when you get done with all your stuff. Same thing for like a drink. That's one of the things I used to do a couple years ago. I would be going, I work from home now, but back then I would go down to the office and I would do a 8 to 8, 8 to 8. And my reward would be coming back, going to my local pub and grabbing a beer. Grabbing a beer and some tater tots. Those were good. Place is shut down now, but that was great. And I would there would be days where I would just be like after the 4 o'clock hour or around that time hit, I'd be like, oh, I just want to go. I'm ready to go. But I'm like, no, Eric, you can't go. You got to get this stuff done first. But remember, you can have a beer, maybe 2. If we can get done fast, get a couple beers at the end of the day. And that worked extremely well. So putting in some sort of like self-reward systems, if you find yourself like really hating or being, not really hating, but maybe you're just extremely bored at what you're doing, add some sort of reward system in there that incentivizes you enough to do that. And maybe that's getting up with your partner and being like, hey, can we schedule something for tonight or whatever it is. That could be a powerful reward too. There's just lots of different things. It depends on the person. But for me, it was that couple of beers and the tater tots that really helped a lot. Yeah. Another thing that I would say would be on this post, we're looking at, let's see what our next one is. Oh, this one's an interesting one. I can't exactly speak to this one, but this one might speak to others. Chasing cheap women. Chasing cheap women you met in a club, which you shouldn't be in, or had a one-night stand with. These kind of women are fun and all a waste of time. Oh, and all to waste time with, that's it. But never chase them. They're for the street and you cannot deny it. I guarantee you're not her first. That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I would agree with that. Here's another one. Looking for shortcuts. You can't rush greatness. It's only if it takes longer than others. Oh, it's okay if it takes longer than others. You see all these dudes getting rich online fast because they're getting rich off of you. Trust me, healthy success takes time, and 6 months is not enough. It takes years. That is 100% true. Especially like when I was getting started with the e-commerce stuff and drop shipping stuff, there were hundreds of these kids, 16 years old, with their Lambos and all this stuff, talking about all this money to make and all this stuff, and trying to sell you their course. And I bought some of those and realized how trash they were, and the courses. And then I saw this 18-year-old, and he sounded very convincing. Not convincing. He seemed like he was trustworthy at some level. So I bought his course, and I was like, you know what? This is the last straw. I'm going to copy this guy's course 100% step by step. And I did that, and it worked. And then I went to a conference that him and this random dude that he claimed to be friends with were at. And then at that conference, which was supposed to just be a like get together for us all, like a group all get together. And instead, his friend turned it into a shill to shill out his course, which turned out to be a complete scam. And it was like $3,000 or something. And I feel bad for the people that went and bought it, but they should hopefully learn something from that. But anyway, 100%, don't get scammed out there. Just because it's a course and someone's trying to sell you it, doesn't necessarily mean that they know anything that they're talking about. It also doesn't mean that it's fully legal either. Because later on, that guy who tried selling us his course, ended up fleeing to Israel and running off with a bunch of money. But also turns out the authorities were after him for some other things. So just because it's a course, just because it says that it can make money for you, doesn't mean that it's necessarily all legal. And you should keep that in mind when doing it. The best type of like way to learn is not necessarily from a course, but it's going to be from people that have already done it before. And if you can message those people and ask them your questions and ask them, hey, what should I do here? What should I do here? Or how do I get started? Or whatever it is. And or even somebody in your own community or church or whoever that you know is doing something that is what you want to kind of get into, or has gotten into, or has done something you want to get into. Go talk to that person. Most people love to talk about what they're doing or what they have done. What they're doing and what they have done. And so I would definitely go do that first, and then just gather information off YouTube and stuff like that from reputable people. But have somebody in your back pocket that you can kind of bounce things off of. That's really what you want. And I kind of had that with my e-commerce stuff when I was just getting started. We were all in one big Facebook group, and the main guy was talking to all of us directly, and he would do 2 live streams a week with us, answering our questions while we were all going through his course. It was actually a really, to me, that is more of that's somebody who really does want to teach you. And he wasn't trying to shill any kind of upgrades or anything like that on us. We bought in one price, and it wasn't expensive. It was under $1,000. And yeah. So anyway, yeah. Let's see here. This is an interesting. Seeking comfort. Curiosity killed the cat and comfort for men. Oh, wait. Curiosity killed the cat and comfort the man. Okay. You're not allowed to be comfortable ever in your life. You only have one. WTF. Are you chilling? Why are you chilling? That's an interesting one. Seeking comfort. I think what the guy is trying to get at here is basically don't get comfortable with where you are necessarily, unless you. Oh, I would add to that and say unless you are comfortable with where you are. Meaning, we all have that certain level or that certain ceiling that we want to get to. But I think what it is easy to do is it's easy to reach that ceiling and reach that whatever it is, lifestyle that you're living or amount of money or whatever. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm here and this is all I ever want. Without thinking more about your future and thinking more about securing it. And I know for me that has happened, where especially with my e-commerce brand, I reached a threshold in terms of revenue and how much money I was making and the lifestyle we were able to live. And I did not really have the same type of motivation to go beyond that. When in reality, I should have had the motivation. But this is the thing. I should have had my ceiling even higher than what I thought what I was actually shooting for. And that's the mistake that we make. It's not necessarily being comfortable. It's that our goals are not high enough. And that's the failure. That's the failure on my part for making my goals not ambitious enough. It's also just a knowledge thing. I did not believe that I could get higher than that with this e-commerce brand. I didn't think I could do it. And I think that is something that we need to learn. We need to understand that pretty much, if it's a money goal, it's most likely not high enough. And so going back to the whole e-commerce thing, I was comfortable. I had reached my goal in terms of being able to live and everything, but I didn't secure the future. I didn't own a house. I didn't invest in this. I didn't really invest and try to build a portfolio. I was just like living off of the brand, the e-commerce brand, without securing the future. And I think that's something that is not talked about enough with that. And so that's something big. You want to make sure that your goal is just the biggest, most ambitious goal you can get, you can think of. Like you could say, I want to be a millionaire by the end of this year. That is achievable. You could do that. You need the knowledge on how you can do that. And that is the whole point to this whole thing. Knowledge is what you need. If you have knowledge, then you can just skip all the steps that it took to gain that. But you have to gain it first somehow. And that's why partnering with other people, having a mentor, all this stuff will help you skip that, help you gain all that stuff a lot faster. But definitely, you're definitely more likely to be more motivated if you know you haven't reached your goal yet. And on top of that, you're not comfortable in your regular life. And if that means like making yourself uncomfortable somehow to kind of, I don't know, mentally get yourself there to where it's like, I need to move out. I need to go buy this. I need to go buy our own home. Whatever it is, then, try it out and see how it works for you. See if you're more mentally there. And let's see here. Let's go down to the very last one here. And I agree with this one a lot. This is a good one. Procrastination. Procrastination is hard to beat. And yes, the best advice would be to just F it and start working. But it ain't that easy. Huh. 100%. Procrastination. let's look up procrastination. Let's look up the definition just so we can read that off and actually see what it is. Procrastination is the delay or postpone of an action, put off doing something else. Exactly. It's what we all think it is. It's not just some fancy word for something else. But yes, exactly right. Procrastinating. Procrastinating is so rooted in our culture. It's rooted in so many areas and places. And in my opinion, procrastinating is more like a habit than it is some kind of like mistake or something that just happens because you have too much stuff. Procrastination is a habit. And habits can be broken, habits can be changed, habits can be replaced, habits can be monitored. And I feel like we are taught to procrastinate at a very, very early age as kids, and that meaning that our parents just let us get away with stuff. They didn't necessarily stand their ground and say, no, you need to go do that before you do anything else, or you need to finish that before you move on to anything else. And if you think about that in itself teaches procrastination, because it teaches that you don't have to go back and finish something. And then eventually you don't need to do it at all, even if you said you were going to do it. Which is a whole nother thing. If you say you're going to do something, it's like a promise. Don't say you're going to do something unless you mentally have it figured out, the time, the day, when you're going to go do it. If you don't have that stuff figured out in your head, then it might be safer not to say you're going to go do something. But procrastination, probably my biggest peeve, my biggest threat is procrastination. I battle with it every day. I get frustrated when I'm around people that procrastinate because I know that I'm trying to break that habit and become more aware of actually doing things. And I know that just by the laws of being around other people, those people affect you, and it's harder to overcome something if the people you're hanging around don't care and are doing that thing. But yeah, procrastination, I think, is probably the number one killer to projects, to timelines, and to why your home is dirty all the time. Now, I said it could be number one. I didn't say it was. Obviously, I can't. There's a lot of other factors going on. But when you procrastinate about something, that thing, you not only beat yourself up at the end when it falls through the cracks, but you also you give yourself so much extra stress, heartache, possibly an argument or discussion with your boss at the end of the day. You give yourself so much risk on being let go from a project or job, and that directly affects your income. There's just so much risk involved with procrastinating, and it doesn't have to be. Unless you're the type of person that just says yes to everything on the very last minute and you have to do it that day, which a lot of us do not do that. Procrastinating is completely avoidable. And it has a lot to do, there's a lot of different factors, but at the end of the day, we think we know how to not procrastinate. Like, we feel like, oh, I didn't have to procrastinate on that. But somehow you try to justify it, and with, oh, well, that needed to get done first. Oh, well, I was just needed to make sure that had extra time. But the reality of it is, those excuses really are, if you're honest with yourself, not very valid. The real truth is you didn't manage your time well enough, and things that were more important, sure, maybe they got in the way, or you put them in the way, or you saved the thing that you really don't want to do for the very last because you really don't want to do it. There's a lot of different factors there. But when you procrastinate on something, if you're working with a team, what you need to do, if you know that that your time management, you didn't deal with it correctly or whatever, communicate to your team people. Communicate to them so that they know that this task is not going to get done. And maybe someone else who has plenty of free time can take that off your plate and take that for you. Don't wait till the last minute to be like, oh, sorry, I didn't get it done. Or I'm working on it right now. And then now you're forced to do a terrible job because you have to get it out there. You don't have time to go through the review team or anything. You put everybody in a bad spot. Most of the things that we procrastinate over, at least for me, are small. They take less than a minute to do. Sure, some tasks take a little longer. But let me give you an example. Growing up, I was not taught to wash off my dish, make sure there's nothing on it, and then put it on the drying rack. Wash it off with soap, put it on the drying rack. Wasn't taught to do that. Wish I had. Would have, doesn't matter at this point because I'm in the habit of doing it now. I had to learn. So we were taught, put everything in the sink, and someone would come do the dishes and put them in the dishwasher. Not as the best efficient way of doing something in terms of your kitchen. Now, I rinse the dish out, I put it on the sink rack. It takes me 20 seconds, maybe 30, depending on the dish, if you do it right after you're done eating. Don't wait for that sucker to dry and all that crap to dry on there, because then it's going to take, 5 minutes or less to try to clean the dish off. Just do it right away. It takes 30 seconds, the stuff comes right off, maybe even less, and then you just put it on the rack to dry. You use less water because you're not running the dishwasher, and the dish is dry within 30 minutes, and you're able to just pick it up and put it back into the cabinet. Your kitchen sink stays clean pretty much all the time, and you don't ever have to you don't ever have to stand there and do a 30-minute plus dish washing session. It's awesome. It's great. It's the way it should be. But if I was like, oh, I'll just set the dish over here to the side and I'll do it later. And the next thing you know, it's 2 dishes. Then it's 3 dishes. And then there's stuff all dried up all over it. And then now it's a pot that I cooked in. And then it's the eggs that I did that morning. And now it's a bunch of stuff with stuff all dried onto it. And instead of it taking me the amount of time, I think throughout the day, it might be equivalent of 5 minutes maybe taking all the dishes and take that into account. 5 minutes. Instead of taking 5 minutes, now it takes 30 minutes, maybe longer, because I'm having to scrub the stuff off. And sometimes you have to let the thing soak, because not everything will come off, which adds to the length of time. It's an eyesore. So there's also that kind of anxiety, because it's like you have a bunch of gross looking dishes and because it's an open floor plan. And not only that, though, those dishes are out of commission, so you can't use them while they're dirty. And then next thing you know, you don't have any dishes left. Now you're forced to do the dishes. And it's going to take you so much longer than if you had just rinsed it out when you're done, because you're going to taking your dish to the sink anyway. And if you just took the extra 20 seconds to rinse it out and put it right there next to the sink, the drying rack, then you would avoid all of this. Same thing. So as far as like, that's a good example right there of saying, oh yeah, I'll do that later and come back to it. And that's more of a family kind of personal, not really personal, but it's a family thing. But that's what we do that through our whole, like all our regular decisions. Everything has to do with like, you have an opportunity to procrastinate on everything. Procrastinate getting up in the morning, which you could also say might be lazy. I really need to get up for this meeting. You wait for the very, very last minute, right when the meeting is about to start, and then you get up. Some people might call that efficient, but it really depends on whether or not you had to prepare for the meeting or you just had to be there. Anyways, procrastination is a habit, and you just have to be aware of it. It's a time management thing. And if you can learn how to better manage your time, giving yourself a short, attainable goals for the day, not your giant arching goal like for the end of the year or what you want to be or become, like how much money you want to see in your bank account in 5 years. Not like goal like that. Short, attainable goals are like, I need to do the laundry today, do a load. I need to finish that report or document or whatever, answering my emails. And I need to, fix a bug in so-and-so. 3 little action items. Check those off your list. Reward is, I get a giant brownie from Whole Foods or something. Stuff like that makes life fun, but also keeps you achieving things. Anyway, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that thread. It was a kind of a fun one. We're going to be doing a couple more of these going on, just trying to be motivated, trying to keep you, let you know you're not alone in this adventure life that we're all in. And just how can we build? How can we be better? How can we be more efficient? All those great things. And just wrapping it into our regular life and like parenting and stuff like that. Because you have to understand, if you're a parent, you're without even trying, you're teaching them your habits, and your habits are going to go on to them. And they're just trying to learn from you. So if you know that you need a habit or you need to crush a habit, then you need to do that ASAP, because the kids are going to be copying those, and you want them to be copying what is a good way of doing it. That's one of the reasons why very wealthy families, their kids also have a good chance of being very wealthy, because they've copied the habits of their parents. And they already have they also have an in already because of the knowledge thing, but they already have kind of like a baseline there. So very important. Keep that in mind going forward. Maybe even like take some time and write down the habits that you can identify that are good, and the habits that you know that you have that are bad. And then that kind of gives you a little bit of a thing like, okay, I need to work on these things. That has helped for me a lot in terms of, it also is kind of a self-awareness type thing, helps a lot for self-awareness. But it really gives you kind of a perspective of, okay, if my kid is behaving this way, maybe it's not necessarily, it's me. And maybe I need to change and be the example so that they will change and that behavior won't be like that anymore. Something to chew on, something to think about. Anyway, so what are some good habits? What are some bad habits you have? And what do you want to work on this year? Work on right now. If you do have any other questions or anything, feel free to send me a text, or if you have a idea for an episode, let me know. Thanks for listening. Ciao.
Welcome to Eric's podcast. Dive into conversations about life, family, and business with your host, Eric. Whether you're looking for practical advice, personal stories, or just a little inspiration, Eric's got you covered. Tune in every week to join the journey and get ready to elevate your game now.